Okay, so we're concluding the ninth annual Energy Science and Technology Conference, and this was an event I wasn't 100% sure was going to happen. We had a couple things happen at the Eagles, and so at the last minute had to make the change here, and I think it worked out for the better because I already have this reserved for next year. And if everything gets somewhat normalized, then hopefully we'll have a full house. First of all, I'd like to thank Natalie Orr, who works here. I came to her and let her know what we needed, and she was able to make it all happen and set us up with a caterer who could do it for the same price that the Eagles was doing. I think the meals turned out pretty good, delicious. And the rest of the staff, John Bohal, Jeff and Jerlyn Moe, Deo Hirata, my good friend Yari from Florida, used to live up here in Spokane, has been helping out, and Ken and Andrea with Big Events USA and Umbrella Syndicate for doing the photography this weekend, and Andrea is going to look at potentially helping us possibly get some sponsors next year and get more exposure on a larger scale for a lot of the stuff that we're doing here. I'd also like to thank all of you for showing up this weekend. This is kind of a unusual time in our lives, and who knows what's really going on, but in any case, you made the trip, we pulled it off, and I think we had a pretty awesome conference. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Phil with KDK1 Media from Spokane, who's been recording our presentations, and Bruce and Andrew Whitmeyer for running the sound. I used to do it by myself and running back and forth to turn up the volume, turn down the volume, and so this has made it a lot easier. And last year was one of the most enjoyable conferences, and I think this one I had the least amount of stress. Not much sleep, but being able to have a good team in place really made it enjoyable. And then, of course, I'd like to thank all the presenters. We're going to have this for about maybe 1 hour or so, and then we'll take a lunch break, and then we'll come back and do the second one. Katya, thank you for coming and presenting on RBTI. She's a local friend of ours who's been doing the RBTI for about 40 years, and it's something that I've seen make a difference in people's lives around me, some of my good friends, Victor and some others, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it myself. I have all the equipment, and so thank you very much. And Dr. DeMio, he wanted to be here for the whole conference. He had some scheduling conflicts, and so we normally like to finish Sunday with demonstrations. You know, it's kind of fun and exciting and everything. Not that the other presentations are not, but we kind of like to have, you know, everybody likes to see gadgets run and, you know, wheels spin and that kind of thing. And we had to change the schedule probably 3 or 4 times to accommodate the constant changes in the airline tickets, which was becoming kind of a nightmare. And but it worked out. And so just flying in, you know, for one night doing presentations and flying back out. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate all your efforts to make it happen.
And then Griffin Brock, who's been contributing in energeticforum.com, sharing his work, being on some of the live calls with Eric Dollard. This is a really smart guy. I mean, incredible. First time he's presented at a group like this. I think he's done some events at his high school. 16 years old. You're about to go into the 11th grade when school starts. And he already knows. I've been working with Eric on stuff about 7 years, and he knows more than I've been able to gather on what Eric's work is all about than I have. And he's very excited to continue to do more projects. I think this might, I don't know if we can maybe get this down a little bit lower so it's not. And anybody who gave donations yesterday, thank you for that. We have Sam in the house. So Yari's daughter's boyfriend is going to be setting up a website, and is that right? To help Griffin showcase some of his work and be able to, you know, receive donations, and he's going to show where these are going. where the money is going, so that everybody can kind of follow his progress, and anything that I can do, and if anybody sees a way that they can pitch in and help support him, because he's doing some really incredible work, and glad you're able to make it up. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Y'all don't want to know what I was doing when I was 16, but it certainly wasn't what he was doing, or he is doing. And then Eric, this was 2 more amazing presentations that are, I think, very important. I understand what they're about. You know, it's hopefully that there are some electrical engineers in here who can appreciate what Eric is showing, and me coming into the middle of it with I'm completely musically challenged. I cannot play instruments, and scrambling at the last minute to find somebody who could play a keyboard, and I learned to play a little bit of Bach myself. But what you heard was not me, but Eric said if that was all we wound up with, it would be acceptable. So that's a big compliment coming from Eric. And yeah, glad you're able to make it back up, and we're going to, I guess, keep moving forward. So thanks for driving up. Eric Dollard. I'm sure you'll mention it. So, does any of you have anything that you want to talk about, or any announcements, or nothing? Or does anybody have any questions? Come up to the mic. Feel free to ask anything about, you got something to say, Griffin? Well, why don't you explain to everybody about your experience coming to this conference, and how you were inspired to even get into these type of experiments? Because I was listening last night to some of his own glomming missions, going out and getting parts and stuff like that. And
climbing old abandoned telegraph lines for insulators and scrapping some of the parts. A fun adventure. But I heard about this conference through the Energetic Forum. After following Eric's work for about 2 years now, I've seen this ad for the conference, and I found some interest in it, but the funds are so expensive, and it's kind of a hassle to get over here. So Aaron, I appreciate it, made it possible, and I'm able to experience this opportunity with these amazing scientists.
Thank you. Let's maybe everybody can kind of share contact information. What's your website, Katya, and how do people get a hold of you?
I'd love to, and I'd like to comment about the workshop on Friday. We had a great turnout. We called it a pee party because over 30 people contributed a urine sample. And we did pH tests on them. We did a conductivity test on them each, and we did a Brix refractometer evaluation of each, and got to talk with each and every one about his results and what could be done about it. You'll see a lot of people carrying around jugs today. It's because they ran out and decided they want to ionize their minerals and get energy. Their biological battery needs distilled water as much as a wet cell battery if they want to energize it and not kill the minerals. So it was great fun, and again, like I said a little earlier, we can follow up with a number of people who have been guzzling distilled water now, finding out how dehydrated they are, and so follow up with another conductivity reading if they want to see the progress in just 24 hours. That'll be wonderful. I have a pulsed electromagnetic frequency device called the QRS, Quantum Resonance System. It's the original. It's on the space station. We have the contract for the Mars mission. I have one of them in the Stampede room over there. Anybody can get on it, and you're welcome. There's no charge. And then my ice cream book that I'm giving away, it's called My Everyday Ice Cream, an acronym. It spells MEDIC. So all this to say, my website is QRS MEDIC, Quantum Resonance System, My Everyday Ice Cream, QRSmedic.com. My phone number's there. There's a text box there to write me, and I'm very easy to reach. I'm usually these days on Pacific time zone, so when you see my St. Pete Beach number in southern Florida. Don't think I'm there and call me at 6 in the morning, please. I probably won't answer. And I'd love to hear from you if any of you have questions, if any of you want to get a hold of a Beto book. I'll do everything I can to help you. Like I said, I'm out of refractometers, and I'll help you find a good refractometer where you can go and purchase one if you need help, and any way I can help you. You guys are wonderful. You're all lovely and all receptive and all so intelligent that you kind of understood the theory of biological ionization, and it's just delightful to be among brainiacs who get it, and I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Dr. DeMio, could you share with them your website and how they can contribute to your nonprofit, and
Sure.
and maybe talk a little bit about some of the experiments, like?
Yeah, for those who want to get my books, there's our book-selling website is naturalenergyworks.net. Naturalenergyworks.net for, all in one word. And you can also get all my books on Amazon or Barnes & Noble and all the other big internet sellers. So either one is good. We make a little bit more money if you buy them from us directly. And the research website is orgonelab.org. That's O-R-G-O-N-E lab.org. And if you forget all that, way in the back on the table there, near the books, I have a little stack of these gray cards which prints out this basic info. You can just grab one of those, assuming that there's some left back there. And the Oregon Biophysical Research Lab, I founded that in 1978 when I was still a graduate student because I had asked the university fathers for money to do research necessary for my graduate research, and got turned down. And I managed to figure other ways, but it also was apparent to me that I could never rely upon establishment funding sources. So I set up this nonprofit. It's IRS approved, Oregon Biophysical Research Lab, Inc., and it's a 501c3 nonprofit foundation. So any of you who wish to contribute to the progress and development of my work and the educational programs we have, so it's both a research and an educational institute. We're located in Ashland, Oregon, and yeah, we have a donation website that uses PayPal, or we accept checks, or whatever. If you're interested and available to support that work, it would be much appreciated. That's how we survive, at least with the research side of things. My present research is kind of held back by all this COVID stuff because I'm dealing with a lot of issues there, educational issues about the problems with the theory behind that, and the lockdowns and all of that, which I think are totally unproductive and damaging, not only to human health, but they're damaging to the economy, and more people committing suicide and depression, bankruptcies, drug abuse, family violence. It all is soaring, much worse than the virus pandemic, in my opinion. But the two things that we are doing is more water research. I've got the equipment set up for an evaluation of the effect of microwave radiation on water itself. Once we can show this life energetic signature in the water, which I showed you before, when you have highly charged water, it's similar to colloidal water. One thing I didn't mention was that those signatures with the ultraviolet absorption and fluorescence are identical to what you find with Gerald Pollack's work on the EZ water, and it also is identical to what you get mixing DNA into an aqueous solution. This is from other people's research, obviously, but the point is that if microwave radiation, as from cell phones or microwave ovens or whatever, disrupts that signature, then it would give another way of understanding the toxicity of microwave radiation, which is of growing concern, I think, to everybody almost. And then the research on the orgone motor and the Townsend Brown, all three of those things are of great interest to me and are more or less proceeding. I hope to increase that once the worst of this medical drama has played itself out. So,
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you. Hey, Bruce, can you give us a 34-minute time countdown there so we can keep on track? Griffin, what's your preferred way for people to contact you? Is it through Energetic Forum or maybe just posting in response to some of the work? Or
The easiest way would be Energetic Forum. Some of you have my business card with my email and telephone number, but primarily I recommend Energetic Forum.
what are the name of the two threads where you posted the seismic stuff and then the three-phase experiment?
Well, the first one is in electrodynamic seismic forecasting. It's under the Eric Dollard official forum. And then the second one I started is the physical representation of a distribution system, and that's just started by me. That is not in the Eric Dollard forum.
So energeticforum.com is one of two forums that we have. One is energyscienceforum.com, which started kind of as the original official Bedini discussion forum with a lot of help and support for the SG projects and pretty much anything that John was involved with. Energeticforum.com, that's been around since about 2007 or I don't know, something like that. And actually started as a support forum for a subconscious mind technology that I was involved with. And I recommended or asked my partners at the time if we could put up a renewable energy section on it, and that pretty much took over and is about 99% of the entire forum. Energeticforum.com is free to join. If you're not a member, I would encourage you to join the forum. And right after joining, and it's completely free, only takes a minute to sign up and register. And then right after you register, if you email Simon Davies, who goes by DR Green in the forum, he's replicated a lot of Eric Dollard's work and he does our customer service. You can email him at help@emediapress.com and he will approve the membership right away. We do it all manually just to keep out spammers and stuff. So yeah, once you go into that forum in the left column, you'll see the official Eric Dollard forum and all the different main categories, and so that's how you can get into that website. And then with Eric, there's a nonprofit organization. It's EPD Laboratories Inc. That's his initials, Eric P. Dollard. So EPD Laboratories Inc. is a 501c3 nonprofit organization registered in Nevada. And that is where the building is that we have down there, and that's where Eric does most of his writing. And eventually we hope to be able to have the funding to actually turn it into a real lab with equipment and some three-phase power, so he can really get down to business and start doing the experiments. The website, if you want to contribute to Eric's work, it helps pay the bills, insurance and everything on the building and utilities and notebooks and pens, pretty much just kind of keep the operation going. You can go to ericpdollard.com, and in the right column you can scroll down and you'll see a PayPal donate link. If you want to contribute anything online, all donations are very much appreciated. The whole organization runs off of donations, and of course the books on Amazon, profits from that help to go to the nonprofit, as well as some of the digital downloadable presentations. A portion of those profits also goes back into the nonprofit. And then if you want to send a check or money order or make a donation through the mail, there's an address in Spokane, Washington, where I'm at. I'm the treasurer of the nonprofit. Eric's the president. Steve Hills, who his profession is hauling equipment around the country, and he's the director of the organization, and then Jeff Moe back there is the secretary. So if you see that Spokane address, as soon as I receive a check or money order, I just send it back down to Nevada to the bank, and that gets deposited.
Would you suggest it a good idea for, I mean, I'm kind of enthused about the Oregon accumulator for different things because of what we do at our home and that, and this, and raising the seeds. I mean, I'm thinking this might be one of those dumb questions, but so do you think it's a good idea to have an Oregon accumulator to do different things with it at your home all the time?
Well, one of the experiments that ought to be done would be to have, for biological purposes, life extension, health, is to have one accumulator in your house.
And so there was a couple of questions that came to mind when you were giving the first presentation. So because we grow a lot of our own food, I mean, at our home, we have a pretty extensive garden, and
But you'll boost your yields with a small accumulator charger.
well, and so I'm thinking that, like, for some of the plants, the question came to me when you showed the water in the accumulator, and so is it necessary to leave that in there in the accumulator for 3 or 4 or 5 days or 6 days, or does it? I mean, I guess my question really is how long do you get before you get that infusion into the water?
Well, I would say fairly quickly, a day, maybe 2 at most. If you leave the water, if you start charging water in an accumulator, what you'll find is after a while it begins to taste metallic.
Yeah.
And at that point you don't want to drink it. Well, it feels like you don't want to drink it, because it's you like fresh tasting water.
But I'm supposing that if you do that and you add a little bit of that to when you're watering your plants, that would also help to accelerate the growth of those plants.
Orgone-charged water, yes, there's been experiments on that. It doesn't work as good as when you charge the dry seeds,
Yeah.
or if you have something that you can sprout like within a few hours, to charge it on one good day and then plant them right away.
Yeah.
So it's something that can infuse fairly quickly if you do it on a good, bright, sunny day when
So
the charge is good.
I can definitely see, excuse me, starting your seeds and sprouting. After they're sprouted and you plant them in the soil, is it increasing or decreasing the time to maturity or increasing yields, or do we have any data?
Well, I would say a little bit of both. There's an organic farmer, gardener in Portugal who did more work on this than anybody else, a woman named Yuta Espanca, and she did all kinds of garden seed charging. She would take a tuna fish can, clean it, of course cleaned, put the seeds in there, bend the lid back over, put it in a plastic kitchen wrap bag, put that in a bigger can, and then put that in kitchen wrap, and then a bigger can still with more kitchen wrap. And she would leave it out in the sun for just a few hours on a beautiful, bright, sunny day. And then she would plant them, and she was getting better results than I ever did in the lab, with all the fancy instruments.
So she's basically making a miniature accumulator with.
That's right,
with
out
the
of
cans.
simple recycled materials. Because remember, tin, and we're talking about tin
Yep,
cans.
it's magnetic.
If a magnet sticks to it. So, there's all kinds of ways to do it, and dry seed charging is simpler. You don't have to worry about, you leave it there for a few hours and then go plant it.
But it'll make that kind of an effect that rapidly.
It should, yeah. Make a control group so you can compare.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll get the same kind of results. The papers on that appear in a publication called Offshoots of Orgonomy, which is a kind of a potpourri magazine of people interested in Reich on a personal and a scientific level. And she has about 10 articles in this magazine that goes over about 5 years, and then it stopped publishing. But we got the old copies and we sell them in a set. So if anybody wants those papers by her showing she measured the weight of the fruit and the flowering and all of that quantitatively, and should have gotten a master's degree for that, but didn't, of course.
Well, I'm supposing that if you charge these things with the argon energy and so on, and the water, that it will make the plants more. It will help to make the plants strong against any kind of disease or insects.
Well, it seems to have that effect upon mammals and, mice, laboratory mice, and human beings. So I have brought some rather withering plants back to life by just charging the pot base inside of an accumulator open to the top, or by just putting the whole thing in a human-sized accumulator in pots. Translating that out into the garden is it's a step. Espanca's work is the only one I can point to who really did that.
It would be something to keep notes on what we're doing there.
Yeah. Actually, I should correct what I said. She's the only one I know who took it out into the garden and wrote up something about it. I've had word of mouth expressions of good result from other people, but she wrote it all up.
So we can go on your website. Is that available on your website?
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Hi, all. Well, this is a great opportunity, especially since it's being recorded for posterity. The situation we're in is just magnificent right now. And I wanted to say, Katya, I know you said that people that are healthy are going to be fine. But I can't get away from this conference without hearing a good Eric rant on our present situation. Okay, yeah. Really, you're not pissed off right now? You're just kind of relaxing on this one and enjoying it? I'm burnt about the whole thing, huh? Okay, well, anybody can say anything they'd like to. I've been sort of taking the pulse of where everybody thinks we're at on this whole thing. The pandemic.
You're talking about, is this microphone work?
The pandemic. Yeah, turn that up, will you?
Oh, you mean the Corona Carnival?
The Corona Carnival, yes, that's another good one, yeah. I just can't get away without a good
I'll
Eric
say
rant,
something that came to mind yesterday. I was watching Dr. Strangelove, one of my favorite movies. And there was 3 episodes with General Jack D. Ripper about the precious bodily fluids and the fluoridation and communism. And lo and behold, if I had the means, if I had anybody to help me with any of this stuff, I would extract those 3 clips out of that movie because they are so relevant to the conditions that we are under right now. We are under a terrorist attack.
I had a question for Mr. Dollard on the Crystal Initiative.
Right?
Crystal Radio Initiative.
Yes. I was wondering, are you working with horizontal stellar antennas with a 90-degree aspect?
Horizontal, well, I can't hear you over the echoes.
Are the antennas placed in ground on a horizontal manner with a 90-degree aspect in order to try to receive those
They receive out of the ground.
They are received out of the ground
That's what it's designed to do, yeah.
and at a 90-degree angle?
That doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter?
No.
Okay.
I think I have one question for each. Griffin, thanks for your presentation on the Y versus delta and that mystery about the grounding the neutral. What's your latest thoughts between you and Eric on, is that too controversial to ask?
Well, it's really the abomination that's being practiced. Both neutrals are tied together, the secondary and primary. Now, in some cases, the neutrals are actually grounded so that the wire in itself is the ground. But with all these nonlinear loads, such as LEDs, CFLs, and these so-called energy-efficient bulbs, which really tamper with the power grid, they create all these nasty third harmonics that allow to flow through the grid. Since a Y transformer is really an open system, the tying of the neutral allows it for it to propagate throughout the rest to the primary side of the Y system and thus propagate through the rest of the system. Now, in methods of seismic forecasting, this really presents a problem because it becomes a massive VLF transmitter of great proportion, which is really unacceptable.
So an EM pulse would have a different effect?
An EMP?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, as Eric has stated, the reciprocity law, if it's a VLF antenna, the way it's configured, it could also be highly susceptible to geomagnetic activity and possibly an EMP.
Yeah. Okay, then I want to thank Eric for his Verser algebra book. I got a lot out of it this last year. Most of my progress has been to understand this hyper-exponentials and hyperbolic functions and complex numbers and versors and quaternions and how it relates to rotation. And so I'm going to try to simplify the programs that I've developed and make it align with some of your work. And I appreciate the presentation just now with Oregon Energy. It's really made me think that these subtle effects have a really profound way of teaching us something that can be used, say, for the free energy or propulsion type technology at some point. But anyway, thank you.
This is because we're all inventors, and I've mentioned this to a couple of people. The Byrd Aviation Museum has moved from the Sandpoint, Idaho area down to Hayden at the airport. And I and a couple of people are going to go there on Tuesday at 11 o'clock. It's an invention museum and an aviation museum. And Dr. Byrd invented the respirator that took place of the iron lung, and then also enabled people to use oxygen at high altitude in aircraft, in the fighter aircraft, so they could fly at high altitudes. It's a fantastic museum, and it's at the Hayden, Idaho airport. So if you got questions about that, see me afterwards, or you can check it out at the Byrd Aviation Museum. Thanks.
And that's BYRD, right?
I think it's BIRD.
It is BIRD.
Yeah.
So, and that's the Pappy Boyington Airfield?
Yes.
So the Pappy Boyington Airfield is right off of Wyoming, where the Hayden Eagles Lodge, where we've had past conferences. It's that same road right in front of the parking lot. You just go west on that and you run right into the airfield. So that's where it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. It's open Tuesday through Sunday, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Kind of for all of you, could you say a little bit more about the direction of your current and future work, or current and future research?
Sorry. I'd like to add that I too have a 501c3. I'm doing lots of work with energy and bioelectric responses of the body toward health, and I just keep going forward as best I can and work with anybody who is serious about finding some truth and willing to share it.
Well, I've already covered what we're doing. Can't think of anything to add to that. Orgone motor issues, Townsend Brown. I have a broad interest in such things.
Was there something in specific about the orgone motor and the Brown thing that you were, is there a specific piece of that you were, a trail that you were following particularly? Or?
I can't reveal all my secrets.
Okay. Okay.
I'm looking at putting more products into production. I'm working with Grant with Ocean Builders, and he's going to work with me on freeing up some of my time to move more into product development and get as much as I can out over the next year and a half. The RPX, the Bedini sideband generator, I need to find an electrical engineer who can create a circuit that will do what the RPX needs as far as a signal generator circuit. That way I can put the whole thing in one box and just simplify it and probably bring the cost down quite a bit. There's other products I'm looking at putting into production. I already built a prototype of the Abrams machine. I have John Bedini's original old Abrams machine, and I replicated his more modern version, which is in a disc that DVD that Tony Craddock has available at the Energy from the Vacuum table. Had a few problems with it. I have to make the circuit board a little bit bigger because the spark gaps and everything were jammed too close together. So hopefully I might be able to get that out by the end of the year. Jeff and I are working on, with Eric, on looking at some type of small scale MWO-ish type circuit, more of a balanced kind that will be using the PC board antennas that Eric developed in the past that look like the MWO rings, but it's a circuit board. A few other projects, and for next year's conference, it's not really a product that's going to be for sale, but it's more for demonstrations, which is an audio system and an RF system to do a bigger flame speaker, possibly 2,000 watt version. Flame speaker might be maybe, I don't know, 12, 18 inches long. There's a lot of different experiments we can do with it, not just that, but it'll do like the cosmic induction generator experiments with all the different plasma formations, hopefully. Do you want to kind of explain a little bit about what that system actually is going to be? And
Yeah, but which...
like it'll be two Air Force racks?
Yeah, well, basically what we're going to have to build is a 2,000 watt amplitude modulated broadcast transmitter. And that will basically do the job, and then it will go into a pair of extra coils, which will be somewhat similar to the MWO. It's a massive project. I don't know exactly how it's going to be pulled off. I estimate from my experience it's 6 months worth of work. So who's got 6 months they can take off from their digital life? But we'll see. I got most of the parts, and Aaron got most of the parts for the audio frequency. I never thought see any of these things again. The fact that we found these transformers and inductance coils on the internet to build AM transmitters with was truly a gift from Jesus. I don't know how we ever found this stuff, but we did. It's the last on the planet. So, like I say, it's a giant project. I don't know how it's going to come about, but if Aaron has made the decision to do it, then it probably will.
So the audio modulator, using these 810 tubes and everything, it's only the second tube device I've ever made. First one was a 4-stage Yukaku device. But this audio modulator is mostly put together. I have to get the time, go down, meet with Eric so he can help me wire it up, and the high voltage rectifier panel, for the most part, is put together. I just got a silk screen the labels on where all the meters and all that kind of stuff is. And so hopefully that's going to be one of the big demos for next year. We're hoping to do it this year, but with all the COVID business and everything, I had to focus on other stuff and couldn't put too much time into it. But it's going to be a spectacular conference next year. Hopefully it's going to be 5 days. We're going to be able to pack the room. We're going to have a lot more demos. This year there were 4 international presenters who couldn't come. And I think 3 of them will be coming next year. One inventor from the Philippines who's going to open source and disclose a technology that a lot of people have been asking him about over the years. And somebody else is going to be coming and doing some interferometer demonstrations, kind of a small scale one. And somebody else, Adrian Marsh, who was here last year doing some vector network analyzer readings on the 20-to-1 scale model Colorado Springs coils. He's going to come and kind of expand on that. So that's kind of, and there's a lot of other stuff, but that's a few things I got cooking. So.
Well, on the list when I get back, I'm planning on updating some of the seismic forecasting receiving equipment, making some adjustments and adding add-ons. And then also a colleague of mine and I are going to be recreating a Tesla TMT prior, after, post to some experiments. I did so. The real objection of this is to measure the longitudinal wave in comparison with the transverse or the above ground wave, and measure the phase shift between the two. Now, I mean, there's no doubt that the velocity, since time is really canceled out, it's almost instantaneous, but just to get a oscilloscope version of this and hopefully publish it. And there's other things, but that's my priority right now.
Thank you.
And what's the wish list, Eric, for the seismic project? If there's funds for the, you want to talk maybe a little bit about the electrostatic generator concept we're looking at based on Donald Trump's uncle?
That's an interesting project, the Trump motor. It's actually, it's not a joke. Turns out to be that Donald Trump's uncle, John Trump, well, let me give you a little background. So I had worked with Chris Carson in Santa Barbara, and we decided we were going to try to develop an electrostatic generator that used no magnets or coils or any iron or any of that type of stuff. It was basically just a spinning variable capacitor. It was basically to prove parametric electrical generating process. And Chris died, and that is recovered. Aaron has that. So I don't know who it is, but Aaron knows somebody, I think they were here or they are here, that had developed the Tesla turbine into something kind of practical. And then I was asked by somebody that wants to start putting this stuff onto industrial level, what kind of generator do I hook to 100,000 RPM prime mover? And the first thing I said was, good luck. And then it started cooking in my head, and then I go, well, let's see. You know, Tesla could only get up to about 30,000 RPM, and the complications just went hyperbolic. You can't really go beyond that. It's just so problematic. And then I thought of the rotating variable capacitor, and I go, well, I got an idea. When Chris Carson and I researched this, we found that there were generators in existence that put up to at least 5,000 watts of DC with no magnets and no coils and no capture of the back EMF or any of that stuff. Tom Bearden wouldn't like that at all. And so we saw that there was a working machine. We found an article on it. So then I guess Aaron looked on the internet, and we found 3 patents and an article by John Trump in the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, a paper, and everything was given there in a nice, short, simple article of how to make a rotating variable capacitor into either a generator or a motor, and I told the guy that was interested, there we go. So I have the power supply in my building for it. I have a pair of 6,000 watt, basically voice frequency amplifiers or modulators at AM transmitters. They put out 6,000 volts, so a 2-phase machine. They're 12,000 watts for the pair, so that would be about 15 horsepower. So I have visually conceived, there's a lot of engineering. This has got to be done on a Bell Telephone Laboratory scale. Not one person can really develop something like this because there's a lot of tensile strength problems in the materials and special bearings and vacuum chambers that has to go in and all that. But I'm looking to build a 15 horsepower, 100,000 RPM generator through that methodology.
This probably won't matter for most of you, but for Griffin, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Harold. I just want to say thank you, Aaron, for the resources and correspondence. It's been awesome. This question is more for me and the audience. How many people that are here, it's your first time being here? Okay, cool. Yeah, when you guys were asking that, I was out there not looking at the hands. I was looking at you guys. I don't know if you guys knew this, but somebody asked Peter whether or not he thought, I think it was Peter, whether or not we should have more conferences and he responded that we should have more experiments and correspondence. Aaron's got live calls that he does, I think monthly at least, and they often answer questions I didn't realize I had yet, which is pretty awesome. I want to say thank you, Eric, for the books, because I took your advice and tried reading Heaviside. First 25 pages were awesome. The following couple hundred, I drowned in, and died. I stopped reading about page 100.
What you have to do is you have to wade through the sea of mathematics and look for those little golden statements he makes.
Yeah, drowned.
Yeah.
And I got a couple questions for you, Griffin. What tools or books did you use to expand your knowledge to where you're at right now?
I would say go back to the original, read the original articles, the original books. And then after that, Eric's work makes sense, just falls into place.
Yeah.
It'll take some time, but it's worth it.
Yeah, the time thing, I agree on that. Also, what was the primary drive behind you wanting to do the transmission project?
Well, in the first step, it was a scholarship contest, so
Cool.
I thought of something I have to create a 3-minute video, which is not enough, but nevertheless I had to. So I thought, okay, why not explain the transformer system after reading and learning about Eric's utility practice presentation? I thought, you know what, I think I should create a small distribution system to actually analyze this firsthand. And then one thing led to another, I submitted the project, and then now I'm here demonstrating the applications of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so glad I can ask all of you this question because I understand. Well, first of all, I was brainwashed to think electricity is just electricity. That's the first thing. And that static was a phenomenon of this, maybe, or lightning. I understand now there's at least 3 different forms of electricity, probably more. One is man-made. The second is static. The third is orgone, biological energy, or electricity. I'm just wondering, is that perception of mine true? And if so, is there any other types of electricity out there, or styles or forms?
Well, static is just one component. You have really 4 representations to really create true electromagnetism. And then the rest is, whether it's man-made or natural, it still derives from the same thing. So that's pretty much it. Eric would be more to answer the actual detailed explanations.
Basically, electricity or orgone or anything of that matter is a phenomena of what I call the primordial medium. From the so-called metaphysical concepts of the ancients, the ether is actually not the right word to use. I got into that in my presentation, the power of the ether as related to music and electricity. So I use the term electric medium, and you might remember if you watched my presentation here that I identified that as the blue sky, and I think James DeMeo kind of basically did the same thing, the blue sky. That's the medium from a simplistic standpoint, this medium that we're immersed in. It's like the ether itself. The ether itself cannot have any physical existence whatsoever. The true ether of metaphysics, but then the ether slang that we use is similar. It's in that you can regard the ether as the genie in the bottle. And whatever you ask of it, you'll get, but you might not like what you get. Beware of what you ask of it. So what we're dealing with here is a force of creation. And I see the time is zero, but I would like to say what's in simplistic terms. I've done it over and over again, but maybe you haven't here. What's going on with the power grid? So initially, human safety used to be a major consideration. That consideration no longer exists. So we have these devices called transformers, and what the transformer does is isolate the customer from the wild stuff that's going on the other side. And believe me, it's wild. There's nothing tame about it. There's no sine waves in the wild world. I think I've given enough of that on the presentations. It can just lash out at somebody with a spark length that has nothing to do with the voltage of the power line, hit somebody on the head and knock them silly. So you don't want to be metallically connected to that. So that's the purpose of the transformer. The transformer is filled with this oil that has such fantastic dielectric strength that there's no way the nasty stuff can get through. So what the utility companies are deciding to do, for completely unexplainable reasons, it can be conspiratorial, it could be mass insanity, it could be stupidity. So maybe I can use that as an analogy and then you can see from there. So bypass the transformer. So let's turn this into physical analogies. So let's say you got your, the one I always use is your washing machine, the metal cabinet or the dryer or what have you. And then there's the phase wires that come in to run the equipment, and then there's the ground wire, so that there can't be any potential difference between your bare feet standing in the puddle on the concrete in front of your washing machine and the case of the washing machine, the metallic case. So that connects to a grounding rod somewhere nearby so that the potential difference is minimal, even though ultimately that ground rod doesn't help that much under fault conditions. So at that point where the power comes into the house, the ground rod is connected to one of the hot conductors and neutralizes it, so it's no longer hot. So the ground, or the metal case on the washing machine, now connects to one of the conductors in the power system. So let's say you have a transformer in a neighborhood and it's running 5 houses. So when you put your hand on that metal washing machine, you have your hand electrically on everybody else's washing machine and everybody else's ground rod and the neutral conductors on the poles or in the conduits. There's a lot of metal there, and then because the transformer has basically no real impedance to any kind of transients or what have you, then the secondaries are the transformers, the phase conductors, the wiring in everybody's houses, any metal that's connecting the ground rods and all that, you're in contact with that. So you're unified electrically in that neighborhood and it's isolated from the hot stuff. Well, somebody came up with this brilliant idea. It was actually started by the Rural Electrification Administration back, I think, in the Roosevelt era. And I wrote a paper on this called The Electrical Utility in the Digital Age. I believe it's on my website. So when you bypass the transformer, well, now when you put your hand on the washing machine, you're connected to everything on the top of the utility pole, including the secondary coils of the substation transformers and all of that stuff, which really is not a good idea. So basically, if a phase conductor on the high side falls to ground, then that neutral shift, you can get several hundred volts on the case of your washing machine. And this is like killing people's pets. It's driving livestock nuts. There's all this sneak currents flowing around in the ground. And now they're taking it one level higher. particularly NIMV Energy in Nevada by Warren Buffett, owned by Warren Buffett. They are YY connecting the substation transformer, which really is illegal, and they are tying the neutrals of the secondary to the primary, so now that ground pin on your wall outlet is connected to the entire grid all the way back to the generating station. This thing has become a massive antenna. And then the fact that it's digital loads now rather than analog loads, like I showed in my presentation, if you fool with the phases in the sequence system, the neutral current can become even larger than the phase current. And we are hooked to a giant antenna. And what this antenna does is every single electrical device that you buy now has a Chinese Trojan horse in it. And the purpose of this Trojan horse is to jam out all radio communications to herd the human livestock away from radio and into the chute of the internet. And the utility grid is being utilized as an antenna to carry and radiate this stuff. So, for example, these little, screw-in fluorescent lamps, they jam out AM radio. LED lights jam out the CB band. All these little, maggot pod things that you plug in or whatever, that none of this stuff is legal at all. None of it corresponds to any safety or electrical codes. There's no fusing, there's no protection. When you double Y the system and ground it, there's no ground fault protection anymore. I showed this in my electrical presentation. Used to be if a phase conductor fell to ground, substation would dump it immediately and would not reclose. You cannot do that on a double Y system. And that conductor will burn and blast and fry and what have you. And unless it can get enough current through a phase conductor to trip the circuit breaker, like 1,200 amps, it just blazes. Yep, so at any rate, finally what I'm noticing is it costs the utility companies a fortune to do this. They have to buy all new transformers. And it takes some time to do it. But the first thing they do, whether it's necessary or not, is connect that high voltage neutral to your house. So I'll end it there.
And the name of the presentation where you go over all that?
That's the
history.
Where there's the paper I wrote, which I think sums it up pretty good. It's called The Electrical Utility in the Digital Age, and it has a companion, The Revival of the Science of Electricity in the Digital Age, and then there's the full presentation, which is called The History, Theory, and Practice of the Electrical Utility System, and that covers everything quite thoroughly.
The Digital Age paper, you can find a free papers link on ericpdollar.com, and that's where you can find that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the presenters up here. Thank you so much.